Well, we hope you had a good holiday yesterday. It was Baptist Day 2022. We're back to normal in a lot of respects this morning. Good morning. It's Thursday, March 31st, 2022, the last day in the third month of this year already. Check how swiftly we're moving. Well, here's what's coming down the pike on the program this morning. Of course, we'll take you around the region. We'll tell you what something's happening in Jamaica and in the Bahamas. If we could get to both of them, we'll see. Of course, the watch list coming up at the end of the program. We'll tell you what that is. We're talking this morning also with Mr. Dennis Chabral. He's one of my colleagues, long-standing in the media in Guyana. We tried to touch base with him about how is that issue playing there, about the fact that the former prime minister, the former president in Guyana, who's now the vice president, who said that, things are falling apart in Trinidad and Tobago. You know, that is a phrase from a famous book by a Nigerian author, Things Fall Apart. Well, there's been a lot of pushback on that, but I can tell you in the paper this morning, in the Newsday, our partner in this business around here, my friend and colleague is writing about that, and he says that, we just have a difficulty facing the truth in that. We'll get a little bit more, but I'll tell you what he is saying about it. Paolo Kernahan in this morning's Newsday. Also, we're talking with Mr. David Welsh, you know, the young activist who was part of the movement, which called itself the pushback movement against encouragements for us to take the vaccine and other things. So then that has gone now from the front pages. What's next for his activism? Where do we go from here? We'll talk with him in the second segment of the program. And we hope to be talking with Mr. Lennox Sankasing. He calls himself Mr. Local government. There's discussion now about another bill to address the question of local government. The Express in the editorial a couple of days ago says that it's not going to go anywhere because it's not as radical and as encouraging as people would hope local government reform to be in strengthening the performance and the ambit of local government authorities. We'll hear from him in a moment. And of course, the COVID-19 numbers, what they are this morning, also the Newsday poll, and we'll share with you some of what is in the papers in the Newsday this morning. These things and more in the program, but we'll take a break and come back in a moment. Stay with us. We just getting going here on AM Prime on this Thursday morning, the day after a public holiday.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title? Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to the program. Let me just read to you some grabs I will take from the editorial published in the Express a couple of days ago at the beginning of the week, as a matter of fact, on Monday, March 28th. It's headlined, "Make Your Voice Heard," and it is calling on members of the public to address this issue and to speak out and to make their contributions as to what is yet another attempt at reform of local government legislation in Trinidad and Tobago. Let me just read a couple of paragraphs for you. It says, "For 57 years, almost the entirety of its independence, Trinidad and Tobago has been on a quest to secure meaningful local government reform without much success. The latest attempt by the Dr. Keith Rowley administration is now before the Parliament, having been reviewed by a joint select committee of Parliament." It says the minority report attached to the JSC's report on the miscellaneous provisions Bill 2020 already signals that the opposition UNC will not support the bill in its current form. It cited 5 grounds and it listed all the grounds there. Among them, the bill contains no provisions for equity in population, geographic size, and allocation of resources to each municipality. The bill reduces the protection of workers by recognized majority unions and insufficient consultation with stakeholders. It says also, it does not require a crystal ball to predict the future of this bill. The public can expect clash and contestation. Since the bill requires a simple majority, it will eventually pass into law with the support of government MPs. If there's any force with the power to alter this cynical outlook, it would be public opinion. The Local Government Reform Bill 2020 is an opportunity to be seized by the people of Trinidad and Tobago in pursuing the dream of a more participatory democracy. It says other things here. To be clear, this bill does not attempt anything as radical as the redistribution of power from the central government to the local government. What it offers is as much change as the government believes it can deliver on the basis of its own votes through legislative amendments rather than constitutional reform. This is where we bring in our guest, Mr. Lennox Sankising, who has written a book on what proper local government should be in Trinidad and Tobago. And he likes to refer to himself as Mr. Local Government. He's agreed to talk with us on the matter. Good morning, my friend. Good to see you. I think you have to unmute your mic.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Good morning, Andy, and good morning to all listeners and viewers. And it's nice to be here.
Thank you very much.
Happy to discuss local government once more.
Thank you very much. To what extent do you agree with sort of the summation of this editorial? Let's begin with that. That it's not offering the kind of radical transformation that the society needs with local government, with devolution of authority, they used to call it.
Yes. Well, I agree entirely, especially when the statement about the numerous attempts at reform of local government. Almost every government that has come into power since independence, I suppose. Well, the PNM was in power until 1986. Then the NR came in, and then the UNC a couple of times, and so on, and then the partnership and so on. And almost everyone attempted some reform process. Some did green papers, there was a white paper, and there have been drafts of legislation and so on, but there was nothing came out that was very concrete out of it. This is another effort which I should compliment the present administration, because as soon as they got into power, that was in 2020, they almost immediately put together a team.
Well, 2015 is when they came back in power. You said 2015, but you're saying this action to address this question began when they were returned in 2020.
2020, that's
Okay,
right.
go
Yes,
ahead.
sorry about it, yes.
That's all right.
And they were returned. And so they immediately put together a committee, and they asked me to serve on that committee, which I did, actually. And we did a lot of work. We came up to with a lot of recommendations. I see the government has accepted many, if not most, of the recommendations that we put together. And so I think it's a good effort, and I'm eager to see it debated in the Parliament and maybe put into effect.
So you're not sort of on side with the Express conclusion in this editorial that the bill itself is not radical enough, it's not transformative enough to devolve real power to local government bodies?
Just to a large extent, and perhaps if I can explain.
Yes.
You see, Andy, our society is not normal in the sense that it evolved over hundreds of years and so on. We must bear in mind that we came out of slavery, colonialism, slavery, indentureship, where the vast majority of people were left out of the decision-making process. In fact, the vast majority of people were really totally outside of that process. And what we are trying to do is change that in an effective way. But we have not been able to do that. In fact, the vast majority of people are still outside of the process. For example, the present local government system is largely a large collection of sections, a large document, the Municipal Corporations Act. But you will notice that there is very little linkage between the act itself as it exists today and the people as a whole. If you walk down any main street in any major town, let's say in Couva or Chaguanas, or even Frederick Street in Port Spain, and you ask the first 10 people you meet, and you say, "Sir or Madam, have you ever been involved in any decisions that affect you, your basic needs? Have you ever been involved?" And the obvious answer, when perhaps in all 10 of them, it will be no. And also, if you ask those people, "Do you know the name of your counselor for the area?" More than likely, all 10 of them will say, "No, they're not familiar with the name of the counselor for this area." So that linkage between local government and the people as a whole has not been there. Now, the essence of local government is really the involvement of people in decisions that affect them within a proper democratic system. And that is the foundation of all development. The development process, let me give us a very simple example. In your family, for instance, you have children, and if mommy and daddy discuss everything, but they do not involve their children in decisions, in basic decisions, for instance, how do mommy and daddy, how do their parents plan, what are the priorities they set, how do they manage their affairs, and including the children and so on, your children will never be really developing in a meaningful way. So involvement of the people is the essence of all development. And once the people are not involved, they do not take responsibility and feel a sense of participation in the process as a whole. Now, some people may say, well, it's up to the communities to make that call and so on. To quite an extent, that is true. But if you notice, the communities are able to organize themselves in certain ways. For example, every major village in central Trinidad and perhaps most parts of Trinidad, there's a cricket team. They get together, they organize themselves, they even have a written constitution, and they participate. And they organize their sports and their football teams and so on. And even you look at the steel band movement that come out of various communities, so well organized. We look at the panorama and we see 100 people playing pan on stage. And just before they start, you can even hear a pin drop. The discipline and the organization is almost perfect. So the fact is that the people are ready. They are ready and willing to participate. But that pull from central government, that encouragement, which is to be found mainly in the local government legislation and the activities of the parliamentarians and so on, that really is not present.
And why is that?
Sorry?
And why is that?
Well, because you hardly find members of parliament reaching out to the communities to organize themselves into strong communities and identifying the issues that they face and seeking to address those issues in a meaningful, involving the people in the process. Even take the situation of crime. I believe crime generally can be reduced considerably if there are meaningful communities participating in a meaningful way in the whole process. You would find that there will be a significant reduction in crime if that can be achieved. But that has been done in all the years. That has been done. Let me give you another example, which you may recall well. You recall when the NIR came into power on the 15th of December 1986. Well, early 1987, they took power, and so they took charge. And do you remember a cleanup camp? They organized a cleanup campaign under then Minister Lincoln Myers, who's now deceased.
Of course.
And that cleanup campaign was the most fascinating thing that you would ever see in this country. It reminded me of the World Cup match in 1989 when we had to play United States. So the whole country was together in support. Well, that cleanup campaign was similar to that. You'll see people cleaning, people donated their trucks and so on to dump garbage. You find people painting bridges. I saw that myself. People were actually painting the bridges on some of the roads and so on. And it was the most fascinating movement in bringing our people together. Now, that is the full potential of our society. That is where we should aim. And several of the governments coming in afterwards, the central governments, attempted cleanup campaigns, but all failed because they were not able to rally all the people in support. And that is what has to be done. And that can be done through meaningful local government.
But the editorial is saying that the provisions in this bill don't inspire that, and the question is why. And you say you support a lot of what is in the bill. So if you support it, why other people don't see likewise and move and therefore make their voices heard? This editorial is calling for them to do. What gets between there?
Yes, right. That's important. The big gap between the bill is meaningful in many ways because our central government said that the aim was to bring local government in Trinidad closer to the Tobago House of Assembly, which they have attempted to do in this bill. But the big gap is linking the communities to the local government bodies. And one major way is to bring the community councils and village councils and so on, get them to be part of the process so that community councils, village councils, and so on should be fall under local government as a first step. And that is not being done. I'm not sure why, but that is a very important step in building that bridge between local government and the people. Secondly, the bill did provide for the possibility of having a meeting of the burgesses quarterly, if the council wishes to do so. So there's a choice, but it should be, there should be some sort of compulsion on the part of the councillors to hold meetings. For example, have you ever heard of a councillor having an annual general meeting to report to his burgesses, to the people in his area?
I can't say that I have.
Quarterly meetings between a permanent executive and having a meeting. Have you ever seen a development plan prepared by a councillor and laid before the council and published in the newspapers, in which the people generally were invited to participate in developing this plan? Have you seen any kind of linkage at all between local government and the people? And we have not seen that yet. This bill perhaps provide a slight basis for that, but the important aspect of linking community councils and village councils to local government is not there. And besides, there's no compulsion on the part of local government representatives to account to their people. There's nothing like that inside this bill, and I would have liked to see something like that in this bill.
And activity among ourselves and our own can't force these things to happen, because I mean, over the years there have been in each of these corporations, when it used to be the county councils and then it moved to these local government bodies and so on, there were people who stood out, and I could call some names. I mean, when I was growing up in where I'm from, in Los Bajos, Palo Seco, Santa Florida, there was a man named Villavera, and there was a man named Conrad Catoy, Raymond Catoy, there were others, when I just came into the media and so on, there was a man named Sahadeo Bundu in what became Tabaki Talparo. There's a member of parliament now, Michelle Benjamin. She came from the local government system. There have been others like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, occasionally you will find some community leaders emerging, very strong, very vocal, very active, and organized, and trying to pull their communities together. Occasionally, but that has come from their own free will and determination. It has not come from any system in place that is pulling them forward, but they have to do their own push forward, if you know what I mean. But you will find that happening very often. In fact, I was very much earlier clock. Well, I remember when I fought local government in 1983, I was told that I was the first lawyer who became a county councillor. That was in the Caroni County Council. And part of the basis why perhaps more professionals did not get into the county council system earlier clock is because a lot of people felt that local government at that time was essentially, especially county councils, was just about drains and roads and cesspits and that sort of thing.
Yes.
I should say, though, that the municipalities had lawyers involved in their process. For instance, Hugh Wooding was the mayor of Portsmouth at one time. So the municipalities always had professionals attached to them at an elected level or as aldermen. But the county councils, which cover the vast most of the island, right, have not really been given that prominence that they deserve. Now, a lot of people feel that local government, and some councillors feel that local government is just about what is stated in the Act. In fact, the councillors are the ones that are the first link to the people. Any problem that the people have, which they cannot find a solution for, their first link is the local government representative, that's the councillor. And therefore, the councillors do play a very important part. For instance, in giving recommendations, in making connections, people cannot get a proper electricity connection, or they need to regularize a piece of land, or also almost every basic need like that. The councillor should be their first contact. And therefore, the councillor plays a significant role. I would go so far as to say that the councillor perhaps is more important than your member of parliament.
Well, a lot of people say that.
Your councillor is about your very basic existence.
He or she closest to the ground.
Parliamentarian. Yeah. The parliamentarian sees about your laws and other duties, but your councillor sees about your very basic existence.
Yeah, there's a man named Shankar Tilak Singh. I don't know what he looks like, but I know what he sounds like, and he and I have a good rap over these years since he's been there, in the Cedros area at the Siparia Regional Corporation. So some people tend to make a difference regardless, but what will empower them more? And would that mean finding a different means by which you engage the people? Because this editorial is saying that we have to make our voices heard in a different kind of way to get the act to reflect what we think it should. How we go about that?
Right, okay, that's a very, very good question. So most certainly, the initial stages must come from the people and so on, but also central government and the councillors themselves, have a responsibility, I believe, which most of them do not really accept. Well, not formal acceptance, but implicitly accept as their responsibility. But they have to reach out to the people, have their meetings, hear what they have to say, find out what their needs are, the difficulties they encounter, especially with central government agencies like WASA, TNTEC, even the postal services, all aspects of central government services in which they're having difficulty. That is where the councillor is supposed to meet with their constituents and take it from there. So, but the question is, how do we initiate that process? Excuse me. Obviously, the push must come from below. If I can use that expression, although below might be the wrong word, but central government can also help push the process. And this bill, for instance, if they had inserted that responsibility, for instance, a bill has a on the recitals. You have the part in the bill that says what is the objective of the bill or what is the objective of the law and so on. And if that situation had been recognized by the government and the need to address that issue, it could be placed in the act eventually. And since, well, it's not passed yet, so it's still a bill, so there's a possibility that could still be placed in the act eventually. The essence of getting the people involved as the fundamental aspect of development. So it's a two-way street, but I guess the main drive must come from the people themselves. Now, we have seen that over the years, where the people are willing to organize themselves. So the sports clubs, the steel bands, and whatever else that they do. Even some community councils are fairly well organized, but they don't go very far. They have their meetings, and eventually it falls down, and so on. But that is where that is the relationship that must take place to move the society forward. And this society cannot move forward in a meaningful way if we don't have that kind of linkage taking place and the development from the ground.
Yeah, and sometimes you always run into trouble when you call some names and don't call others. So I want to put Terry Rondon in that mix, because there are those people who...
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful councillor, Terry Rondon. And all the names you have, the fellow in Citrus.
Shankar Tilak Singh, I think. Yes.
The councillor we just called, who's been very active, especially with the Venezuelans coming across.
Yes, Shankar Tilak Singh.
Need in his area, he tries to make representation for them and so on. His last name is Tilak Singh, you said?
Shankar Tilak Singh.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, Shankar Tilak Singh. I've come to know him over the last few years very well because of his advocacy on one front or the other.
Right. As a matter of fact, one year I nominated him to be Councillor of the Year about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Because he was very active in the Citrus area and he was making really, really good representation and so on. But I don't think they had a system in place to identify a Councillor of the Year.
And you think that should happen? That's a kind of a reach for a spur that will help this process, you think? That kind of recognition?
Yes. Any little step in that direction will help. It will help the society. It will help the society develop.
Yeah. So you're saying, let's get it as we come to a close. You don't think the bill, you agree with the position, the foundational position in the editorial. You don't think the bill reaches for what we should be reaching for, but there are lots of elements in it that you will support.
Yes, definitely. Yes. They have enlarged the functions of the bill. They have increased, they will have there's a substantial increase with respect to their budget allocations. As you would see that the property taxes, all property taxes from residential buildings and residential areas will go to the local government body. That's a very large sum of money. A local government body would immediately get between maybe $20 million to $30 million for development purposes. Right now, if they get $1 million for development purposes, they call themselves lucky.
Okay, so, and here's this question then. That is like giving an inch, and therefore you have to come to giving the yard. You think that is a start in terms of this devolution of authority we're talking about? If they're going to get these monies from the property taxes and so on, that is an inch. That is a sort of getting your head in the door in terms of effective devolution of power and authority.
Yes, I think it is more than an inch. It's more like an L. But I think it's a positive step. The councils will certainly feel more involved in the developmental process. They'll be able to address major issues like paving more roads, doing more box drains, recreation grounds, all sorts of things they'll be able to attend to more easily.
Yeah, and are you hopeful about the advocacy Mr. Al-Rawi is taking on as to how he's going to make a difference there?
Well, he has hit the road running, as you noticed.
Yeah.
He had a meeting in San Fernando in many councils, but one is not sure whether this was intended for local government campaigning rather than addressing the real issues of local government. I intend to do a couple letters to the editor, encouraging him to take it on seriously in this way, and he could be very instrumental in reforming local government on the ground rather than on paper through the laws.
All right.
And in fact, I want to encourage him to. In fact, I will go so far as to say that as you know, Andy, when there's a new government in place, elections take place, and new government is in place. The first appointment is the Prime Minister, and then the Attorney General.
Yes.
And the two of them can form a cabinet.
Yes.
But I would like to see added to that is the Prime Minister, the Attorney General, and the Minister of Local Government, because the Minister of Local Government is really the representative of nearly all the people in Trinidad in terms of their basic needs. But unfortunately, in this act, they have abolished the Ministry of Local Government. So the councils now link directly to the Minister of Finance. So the Ministry of Local Government will no longer exist.
All right. So as we close, you think that there's room here for us as citizens to speak out, as the editorial is suggesting we do, and put what we need to see in local government for the consideration of those drafting the law and those executing the policy and so on?
Definitely.
All right. I got to leave it there,
my friend. People like, for instance, David Abdullah,
yes.
They talk on local government all the time and so on. But for some reason, the connection is not being made between the people and the various persons who have been talking occasionally. There needs to be a concerted effort all around. One idea that has been floating around is that there needs to be a separate local government party, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
A local government body that will not really be seeking election at the central level, but looking at after local government interests only.
Oh, that's right.
Because if local government representatives come from the large political parties, the UNC and the PNM, their obligation is essentially to the party.
Exactly. Well, I wanted to introduce that in the discussion, but that's another. That's going down another sort of rabbit hole in any case to treat with that, because a lot of times what they do has to stop at the point where it would seem as though they're challenging the party in office if they belong to the party, and you have to consider that as well. But as we wrap up, let me just say this is a tribute also to the late great Sheila Solomon, who did everything, at least in her more concerning local government. But we have to leave it there. Thank you very much, my friend.
Okay, that's it, Andy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We will keep in touch. Lennox Sankising. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we tell you what the numbers are and stuff like that, the Newsday poll, before we move forward, and we get to Mr. David Welsh, activist who's probably looking for another issue to hitch his wagon to, but we'll talk with him about that. Stay with us. This is AM Prime this Thursday morning.
Say hello to the newest way to access eye care support. Say hello to Ferrera Optical Virtual Care. For the first time in TNT, you can now connect from the convenience of your home with our team of eye care professionals online. Need guidance on a vision problem or adapting to new eyewear? Book a virtual visit via FerreraOptical.com using our smart scheduler, and we'll take care of the rest. Ferrera Optical Virtual Care, connecting with you wherever you are.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
I'm here with Andrew Lewis, sailor. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
The most beautiful thing about sailing, in my opinion, is it's where it was, originated from. It was a form of transport that was allowing people to connect different parts of the planet. And sailing today has become many different ways of life, but I have chosen the pathway of the Olympic Games.
For women to feel confident, we have to feel sexy. That doesn't mean outward appearance. It could be a mental state, it could be a physical state, it could be an emotional state. And if you choose to be liberal, and if you choose to be conservative, that is up to you. I just give you the space to choose whatever you want to do.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back. Well, let's just tell you what the numbers are on this morning, the last day in March 2022, having to do with COVID-19 and the matters related there to the new positive cases, the recovered patients, the active cases in total, the number of people at hospital, and of course what the death toll is this morning. So 261, the new positive cases reported in the country over the last 24 hours. Total patients in hospital, 175. The deaths, yesterday, 5. And the total active positive cases since we began counting on March 12, 2020 to yesterday, 7,031, 3,746. That's where the death toll is at the moment. So those are the numbers at a glance on this morning with COVID-19 in our midst as we continue moving ahead with what is called opening up. And there are lots of handshakes about that and people expressing their sense of relief that we're going back to what used to be called normal. But we have to be cautious about it because there are countries which attempted this and had to go back and continue to close down or return the closing down to some degree or the other. Let's see what happens with us on that. Let's get to the Newsday poll now on the responses state. And the question was, what do you think about the opposition leaders saying that Trinidad and Tobago is being ignored by CARICOM and world leaders because of the Prime Minister? One response is that he's being ignored right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Why then will world leaders take him seriously? Another response is fact. Mia was invited to an oil conference. He was not. Another response, she isn't lying. I think they'd both be ignored. We need new blood, modern, updated persons. The UNC and the PNM should be placed in museums. Another response is, but it is the same lady who, when she was Prime Minister, Jamaica wanted to boycott products from Trinidad. Isn't she the same lady who said Trinidad is not an ATM? So why is she concerned about how CARICOM feels about this? And the final response is, we are being ignored because of the entire PNM UNC circus. Unlike Trinis, the rest of us, the rest of the world do not have to subject themselves to their foolishness. Those are the responses to the question. Let's take a look now around the region. We go to Barbados where there's some discussion in the Parliament about how things are being done, the schedule of remuneration and allowances for ministers and other matters such as that. We're going to hear from one of the politicians there, Elizabeth Thompson, I think it is, has identified failures in the implementation of policies, but we get a report on that from Barbados today. Take a look.
Senator Elizabeth Thompson has suggested that the coordinating and oversight expected of the country's 4 senior ministers will help to reduce inefficiencies and prevent significant challenges for projects in the pipeline. She was speaking in the Senate on Monday as she supported a resolution to approve the ministers' and parliamentary secretaries' remuneration and allowances order 2022. Senator Thompson said while politicians are often the target of criticism when projects are not executed correctly, they were often not the ones to blame.
Often one hears policy articulated or promises made. And while it is the politicians who articulate and bear the responsibility and the blame when there is not delivery, there is often a tremendous gap between the policy intention and the policy implementation. And it is not the politicians who are responsible for the actual day-to-day implementation. And therefore, I see this as a measure intended to structure and deliver on implementation and on the commitments made, the policy commitments made in the manifesto which the Barbados Labour Party presented to the public of Barbados in the last election. This means that the ministers do actually have to coordinate, that they actually have these senior ministers to work with strategic plans. They are responsible for broad areas: governance, business development, social and environmental matters, and infrastructure planning and development.
An independent senator has cautioned the government against adding layers to the cost and administration of projects with the new senior ministers' positions. Although Senator Lyndale Nurse supported the resolution to approve ministers and parliamentary secretaries' remuneration and allowances order 2022, he expressed a reservation.
I think that any government obviously has the right to organize its administration in the way it best sees fit. And I think that in this case, if government is confident, if government is sure that by going this route of adding this other layer of senior ministers will assist in making government more efficient and in creating the environment in which the opportunity to improve doing business in Barbados, then I think that is fine, and you can't argue with that. If, on the other hand, it ends up where you end up creating other layers of administration, creating additional costs of running the government, then obviously, in my view, it will not be effective.
All right, so we have with us now Mr. David Welch. He's an activist. He was one of those who were the organizers of that first big pushback event in the Queen's Park Savannah some months ago. So the government has rolled back a lot of what it was attempting to do with them, getting more of us to take the vaccine. They say that, well, enough of us have taken it. That's the word from the government. So we're collapsing some of the government, is collapsing some of the, moving back on some of the restrictions, some of the protocols that, as we've come to know them. But there are other issues in the country which attract the attention of people like Mr. Welch. So we're trying to get a sense from him as to what's next. Good morning, sir. Good to see you.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Well, good, thanks. You look well.
Oh, just got up, so.
Yeah, and you look well rested.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. So where to now, as we're asking? What else? What's new on the agenda for people like yourselves? What are you all pushing back at? Or what is there to push back at?
In terms of the pushback, I don't know where the pushback is at now. Myself, I am now the youth officer of the Progressive Empowerment Party. So that is something new that is on the table for me. I think my next step is to bring youths closer to politics, definitely, and to bring a sense of safety and a sense of change to Trinidad and Tobago. So as of today, in the planning stage with most of my committee, most of my team, to have a massive event now in my constituency, my area where I was born.
And that's where?
Laventille East Movement.
Okay, well, I lived in that constituency for the better part of...
Oh, nice. Well, maybe we could see you at the event as well.
Well, that's not a problem at all. You know Pelican Extension?
Yes, I know Pelican Extension. I actually was born and I was raised there at Pelican Extension.
Really?
Yeah, serious thing, no joke.
Well, by who? I mean, let me see if I can connect. By whom? Well, the people.
Sorry, just repeat again.
Yes. Let me see if I know the people.
Do you know Marva, Dexter, Leslie, and Welch?
The Welches. Yes.
Welches, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
Yeah. That is on as you head into Matapal Street on the corner there.
Yes. You know exactly what I'm speaking about.
Of course, you know. All right. So that is going to be the area if you ever decide to take the plunge and run in the next election. So you would be going up against Mr. Leonce. If he survives,
not on the agenda right now. Yeah. It's not about winning at this moment for me. It's simply about bringing trust and a level of change to the area as an external factor. In any given instance where we speak about running for political office, I think myself, my team, and the party will make that decision.
Okay. How did you come about choosing the PEP?
Well, I mean, it was a give or take, because there's a lot of persons that have been telling me, I've been at this for over 3 years now, on the comments regarding the United National Congress, and even myself, when I would have put on the yellow shirt and ran out there outside of the parliament, most people were not happy about it. There's a lot of people in Trinidad and Tobago that says they're not going to vote PNM, they're not going to vote UNC, they're tired of the two parties, and they would love to see that semblance of change. Whether or not people at this time thinks that the PEP is not that change that is needed, what is definitely needed is young people in politics and young people being bred inside of the politics in Trinidad and Tobago to really effect that level of change that we want to see. So the PEP was a give or take. There's no other political party that I would have been wanting to join other than the PEP, simply because there's, number one, a level of experience with Philip Edward Alexander, and I can learn a lot from the PEP.
When you say a lot of experience with him?
Many would say he came from the PNM, he was there at the UNC, he's in every single aspect of Trinidad and Tobago. When we look at Candlelight Vigil, he was the mastermind as well behind that. He's everywhere in everything and is fully connected with what is going on here in Trinidad and Tobago. As it pertains to the other political parties, I mean, Makila Pandey has a political party, but you don't see Makila Pandey outside on the ground 24/0. Nikolai Jean-Paul Edwards, he is heavily inside of politics, but you don't see him on the ground 24/0. So the PEP was the party to join for me. I know many would speak about the PDP, but what am I going to do there?
Yeah, but something appears to be missing, at least in the imagination of the voters, because the party does have a kind of good platform. I've read some stuff, I've interviewed people, I've spoken with people who are involved in it. For that same reason, they figure that this is a kind of breath of fresh air, and it attracts a lot of young people. The lady who ran in the last local government elections in Belmont, and others, Janice Lemon Creaky, people like that. But what do you think? Well, it's not a question necessarily for you, but in the imagination of voters, something seems to be missing for them. Or what is it? In some cases, people say that the very dynamism of of the leader sort of rubs people the wrong way in some ways.
Well, the general idea that the leadership is a problem in most minds of Trinidadians is so untrue, because Trinidad never vote for leaders. We always vote for representatives, and elected representatives in our constituency. So the fact is most Trinidadians are not going to vote outside of the marginal race scheme that they vote on each and every single 5 years. So who votes PNM going to continue voting PNM, and who votes UNC going to continue voting UNC. That's just a given fact. But what we have now, what we have going for us now, is that a lot of persons are fed up of both the PNM and both the UNC, and they just want to see that semblance of change now. I think the COVID-19 pandemic brought about that awareness, and we wait and see what 2025 brings.
Yeah, and you don't think, I mean, if I say Rowley, it's not meant to be disrespectful to him. I say Kamala, not meant to be disrespectful to her either. But we call the names because these are the leaders, and so the question really is: so you don't think that people vote for Rowley and people vote for Kamala? Because I want to get to this question about who is the leader and to what extent that determines how people vote. So the leader, the position of leader, is a big factor for a lot of people. You don't think?
It is, but that is left to the general party, because the party selects a leader at the end of the day. I know how a prime minister, per the constitution, is even deemed a prime minister, the person with the most votes from the election period. But we typically don't vote for leaders. We vote for our representatives here in Trinidad and Tobago. That's why probably Laventille East movement continue voting for Adrian Leonce, because they like the individual.
You believe that?
Fitzgerald Hines, I don't know, he continuously keeps holding on to his constituency.
If it because people like them?
In Trinidad, we vote our representatives.
Well, that's refreshing. That's refreshing if you think so. You think a lot of people vote for the PNM in Laventille East mover because of Leonce, in Laventille West because of Hines, and not because they are loyal to their party? Whoever you put?
Mainly it's the pattern in which they vote. They grow up voting PNM, and it's such a trend in Laventille East movement. Anytime election comes around, it's automatically PNM, because that's how it was bred for years. But I have definitely spoken to a mass variety of persons in Laventille East movement, and they actually do like Adrian Leonce. I mean, they say that he does a couple of things for the community. I would believe that he's not doing enough, but they definitely vote for him because they think he's a good person, not really a good parliamentarian, because views are definitely not expressed inside of the parliament. Our views as citizens or as burgesses of that area.
So let's say
not represented.
Let's
they
say,
vote for him because they like him.
Let's say, and people would say, God forbid, that he, for some reason, he switches sides and goes to another party. You think people would still vote for him?
I don't think so, no. I think that he would lose out on a lot of support because, again, it's a PNM area. How much years? It's about over 50, 80 years. How old is Laventille East movement? Is it 80 years old?
Well,
and since then, it has been PNM.
Well, yeah, and it wasn't always Laventille East mover. At one point, it used to be part of Laventille. At one point, it used to be part of St. Anne's West, and, going back in the early 70s and so on. So the configuration of it has changed over the years.
It has, but I don't think at this moment we're going to see a drastic change, but I do believe that with the right person, because all persons in Laventille East and Laventille West have been asking for from the United National Congress, is a good candidate, someone that can truly represent. And I believe that if we give the people of Laventille East movement that ability to have a good candidate, then we could create some headwaves there in Laventille East and maybe Laventille West as well.
Okay, so between now and whenever the elections are going to be called, they're due in 2025. So you have a plan. Let's talk a little bit about the steps you're taking between now and then. What are you doing now? That will get you where, at which point on the takeoff, on the runway, let's say a year from now?
I like you, I love you. I see where you're going with this. No. I think we would have to wait on 2025 to see. But I can definitely tell you that we are in planning stage to have a massive event there at Laventille East. And then we're going to take off from Laventille East to other constituencies across Trinidad and Tobago as well. But I am focused on Laventille East movement and developing my community even more. And yes, I have plans in which we can develop Laventille East. I mean, you are from there, you were from there. I don't know where you're staying at now, but one thing that you should know, and I'm sure that you know, is that Laventille East movement can sustain itself. It can.
I think so. I've always believed that. I mean, I live in Arima now, but I'm from deep south now. I've traversed this country over the decades, give or take the 10 years that I spent abroad. But so how are you gonna?
Sorry?
Yeah, I'm trying to get at. So what is the level of receptivity you get when you talk with people now, the very people you say who are fascinated with Leonce?
I have not spoken to anyone recently. In recent times, I mean, maybe within a month or so, I have not spoken to anyone within the area recently about politics mainly. The general idea of politics in Laventille East Movement is slim. A lot of persons, they are, number one, upset. They don't like the way that the country is being run on a general consensus. They don't like how the country is being run at the moment. And a lot of persons within the area, I believe, is ready for that semblance of change. In fact, I actually told an untruth. It's not that I have not spoken to anyone within a month. I actually spoke with someone just 3 days ago within the area. And they have some major concerns when it comes to employment, their jobs, and even job security for kids, for their children growing up in Laventille East Movement, and mainly in the country as a whole. So I think there is a level of persons that are ready for change in Laventille East Movement, and I believe that they're just waiting for the right person and the right time to give someone that responsibility of changing the dynamics of, number one, politics, and number two, the area.
Yeah, you know the man they call Aikido. He has a line of punch and so on, I think.
No Aikido.
Yes, okay. Well, say hello to him when you see him, and I'll be in touch with him and see to what extent he can probably provide some kind of support.
Not a problem.
Dynamic person. All right. Mr. Welch, thank you very much. Well, we will keep in touch. We'll certainly stay in touch and say hello to the people.
Definitely. Thanks so much for this, brother.
On Matapal Street and so on. Thank you very much. We're going to take a break. We have news. On the back of that, we're talking with my colleague in Georgetown, Guyana, Dennis Chabrol, about how it's playing over there, this question about us being described as falling apart by the vice president in that country. And I remind you again that in this morning's Newsday, Paulo Cunningham is saying that he saw nothing wrong with what the man was saying. In fact, he says that we are responding to reality in the way that we have, but we have to face up to that reality. Stay with us.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
The issue the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Well, I've had a lot of calls from Trinidadians too who said, we agree with you. I've tracked what's going on in Trinidad and Tobago for quite a while. And what I've said before there is not anything new. Every day it's being said in Trinidad and Tobago itself by people, common people, as well as people in every circle. The groups that come here on the private sector, they say this all the time. Now the fact is that Trinidad, and this is indisputable, that its economy is heavily reliant on one sector, oil and gas sector. That's a fact. I've had discussions with several leaders there about a post-oil and gas economy. So this has nothing to do with just Rowley. This is the fact of the economy in Trinidad and Tobago over a long period, growing to rely only on one sector. There is a theory that that shouldn't happen. Theoretically, the danger has been pointed out, and it's called the Dutch disease. And practically, it has consequences for your country too, and we've seen it happen in Trinidad and Tobago. I recall reading one of their budgets, an earlier budget, not the 2022 budget, where in 1 year they lost 80% of their revenue because of the change in oil and gas prices and the fall in production. To organize a budget when you have such a big economic shock, it is difficult. Things will fall apart, whether you like it or not. And so, I said, we are determined in Guyana to avoid going down that path, which has happened not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but in many countries of the world, where because they did precisely what APNU is trying to get us to do, they ended up with those consequences.
Pretend we're in darkness and you love me.
We Comedy Jam Season 3 is finally here.
Trinity people just give you the landmarks you don't need. On the right hand side, you'll see a standpipe. I put on this pee on that standpipe.
To me, COVID is a red girl, yes? I have no money.
Tune in to WESN every Monday from 8 p.m. to hear your favorite comedians bring you the laughs.
So from above the waist, Indian, but below the waist, still Indian. So.
Gift giving during a lockdown can still be hassle-free with a gift from FanZone with delivery options available nationwide. Visit and browse our Facebook and Instagram pages for all your official licensed merchandise and apparel and have it delivered to your door. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. FanZone, we've got you covered.
I'm here with Andrew Lewis, sailor. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
The most beautiful thing about sailing, in my opinion, is it's where it was, originated from. It was a form of transport that was allowing people to connect different parts of the planet. And sailing today has become many different ways of life, but I have chosen the pathway of the Olympic Games.
For women to feel confident, we have to feel sexy. That doesn't mean outward appearance. It could be a mental state, it could be a physical state, it could be an emotional state. And if you choose to be liberal, and if you choose to be conservative, that is up to you. I just give you the space to choose whatever you want to do.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back to the program. Well, we're trying to make contact with my colleague Dennis Chabral, a senior journalist in Georgetown, Guyana. We'd agreed to be talking about this issue that you just saw a moment ago, the vice president, former president in Guyana, Bart Jagdeh, making sort of rationalizing the position he took when he used the term that Trinidad and Tobago was falling apart. Of course, he was making that point about avoiding the path that we took with our heavy dependence on oil. And he said that he's been in discussions with people in this country, with people in leadership positions, and that is a view that he came away with from what they were telling him and what they are telling him. And I refer to the column in this morning's Newsday in which Paulo Cunningham is saying that the man is right and that we are refusing to face reality and all of that. So we trying to reach Dennis Chabral to just get a sense of how that issue continues to play in Guyana. In the meantime, let's take a look at what else is happening around the region. We go around the region. It is a story in Antigua about immigration and passport amendment bill to treat with that issue in that country. Let's take a look at that.
I've heard it said on the radio, this is just an election ploy, it's an election gimmick, but whether it is or not, for persons who are illegal, for persons who are under this veil of uncertainty, they have an opportunity to regularize.
Government Senator Maureen Hyman piloted the Immigration and Passport Amendment Bill, indicating what is at issue is not the basis for the legislation, but what it allows for. The bill creates the legal framework for those currently residing in the country illegally to regularize their status within a certain period.
It is from the 1st of March to the 30th of April. So it's not a situation that we're saying whenever you feel like it, you can come and be regularized. There is a limit.
Those who don't take advantage of the opportunity will risk deportation. However, opposition Senator Richard Lewis says frequent amendments to the act are indicative of a greater problem. He says steps need to be taken to address underlying issues facing immigrants.
Let's look at lowering the fees for extension and so on, making the application. And that would help us to reduce the number of illegal immigrants in Antigua and Barbuda. As I said, I don't think individuals want to be legal in the country.
The bill was passed without amendment. Jessica Russell, ABS News.
More news from Parliament's Upper House, because the Upper House also passed the Criminal Records Rehabilitation of Offenders Amendment Bill 2022. It makes minor changes to the existing law following administrative changes at the Social Services Department.
Clause 3 of the bill removes references to staff positions that are no longer in usage at the Directorate of Social Services, namely Chief Welfare Officer and Chief Probation Officer, and replaces these with the term Director of Social Services and Probation Service Manager.
Well, the Criminal Records Rehabilitation of Offenders Act was passed in 2013 to create guidelines for certain criminal records to be expunged, allowing some offenders better employment and social opportunities.
All right, so in lieu of making contact with Dinesh Brawl in Guyana, well, let's see what you think about the issue out there in AM Prime land and WESNCC land. So we put the numbers up on the screen. In the meantime, we go to Belize now, where the United Democratic Party there is welcoming a new leader, and all roads lead to, well, some stuff happening. Well, this is Antigua. Some Big Bird, as they used to call him, Big Bird Island Sunday, where over 500 delegates cast their votes to elect a successor to Patrick Faber. Take a look.
256 in favor of Honorable Barrow and 253 in favor of Honorable Panther.
Shine Barrow's meteoric rise to the highest office in the United Democratic Party, in a victory clinched only by a hair's breadth, is the fastest ascent to the leadership of a political organization in Belize's history. The rapper turned politician was the favored candidate going into Sunday's convention. Many thought that Barrow would have won decisively, but his opponent, Tracy Panton, came within a few votes of an upset. Since taking over leadership of the party in 1998, Dean Barrow remained in opposition for 10 years, before a 3-term winning streak cemented his legacy. His influence over the UDP is to Shine's advantage.
I served as leader of this party for all these years. I was 3-time Prime Minister. Doesn't that entitle me to call in whatever chips I may have in support of my son? There's nothing improper about that. There's nothing at all unfair, not in the least bit.
Predicting any outcome for today, sir?
No, I only have a hope that my son will win.
At the end of the convention, Shine would indeed emerge victorious, getting away, as some would say, by the skin of his teeth. The narrow margin of victory, however, prompted others in Panton's camp to request a recount of the number of ballots cast.
Well, we had from early this morning gone through the process. We had the scrutineers come in. We explained everything to the representatives, watched the process, because at the end of the day, the process will determine everything. The entire day we went through, both sides were happy with how the people came in, voted, deposited their ballots. When it was finished, the ballots were counted, and when they were counted, nobody had any concerns about how the counting took place. So then, it wouldn't have made a difference. That's the result. 256 to 253 already tells you how the party is divided. It's close no matter what. That's the count. There was no discrepancy in the count except for maybe one ballot. Going either way wouldn't make a difference.
Here's how Shine reacted to that slim victory.
You know, Michael Jordan has won championships by one basket. So it's nothing new in life. The party is a healthy reflection of democracy. I think we handled ourselves pretty well. There wasn't a lot of mudslinging, any at all. You know, kept it internal. And, Tracy and I have been in touch all throughout for parliamentary matters. Today when she walked in, I hugged her. When I walked past her, as we're both campaigning today, we would say hello to each other, and we shook hands and we hugged and we embraced, and we will move forward.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.
All right, well, we encourage you to give us a call now. We have some time because we're having difficulty making contact with Dennis Shebrell. You see the numbers come up on the screen there, 622-9338 or 623-9376. In the meantime, let's continue a look around the region. We're going to Guyana for this piece this morning. The story will tell you what it is, so take a look.
In a very short statement today, the Guyana Police Force announced that Acting Police Commissioner Nigel Harpy has proceeded on pre-retirement leave. And Assistant Commissioner of Police Clifton Hicken, who has been performing the functions of Deputy Commissioner, will now be performing the functions of Police Commissioner. The move to appoint Hicken to perform the functions of Police Commissioner has resulted in substantive Deputy Commissioner Paul Williams being overlooked, although with Harpy heading off on pre-retirement leave. Williams is the most senior officer in the Guyana Police Force. In February 2021, Deputy Commissioner Williams was posted to the Civil Defense Commission as a security advisor there. The Guyana Police Force would not comment on the details surrounding the appointment of Hicken, and President Irfan Ali, who 3 weeks ago assured that the Constitution will be followed in the appointment of the Police Commissioner, has also gone silent on the issue. The Constitution of Guyana states that the President appoints a Commissioner of Police following consultations with the opposition leader and the Police Service Commission. There is no Police Service Commission in place, and the new leader of the opposition is still to be appointed. There has been no appointment of a substantive police commissioner, but questions are being raised about the appointment of Mr. Hicken to act in the position. Former chairman of the Police Service Commission, Paul Slow, has explained that the same requirements apply to the appointment of an acting police commissioner. He has also noted that with a substantive deputy commissioner in place, it would be strange and a possible affront to the public service rules for a lower rank to be appointed to the head of the force in front of the person who was holding a substantive deputy position. Under the former APNU AFC government, Assistant Commissioner Hicken was among several assistant commissioners interviewed for the Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioner of Police positions. At the end of the interviews and following consultations with the then opposition leader, a police commissioner and 4 deputies were appointed. Hicken was not among the deputies appointed. However, following the retirement of 2 of the deputies last year, he started to perform the functions of Deputy Commissioner of Police for Operations.
Well, I don't know if you want to call it justice per se, but there's something poetic in that story there, because it is reminiscent of what we were facing just months ago, the question of a vacancy for the position of police commissioner, and we know how we went about solving that, and it continues to reverberate. The repercussions from that continue to reverberate among us here, and there they are in Guyana facing the similar situation with the appointment of a police commissioner that's raised all kind of questions there. Interestingly, as we continue to prosecute this issue about the state to which the vice president in Guyana has said that he's justified in making the reference he made as to the extent to which we may be falling apart as a society. And that's been based on his encouragement for the people in Guyana not to put all their eggs in the basket of oil, as we may have done. We have a call on the line, somebody from Faizabad. Good morning.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Morning, and thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, Andy, I want to touch on, I don't know if you would have looked at the TV last night with Miss Barbara Burke, I think Archbishop Barbara Burke.
Yes.
And it was really, really, amazing to know that this whole Baptist shelter arrangement went across. And I've been listening quite attentively over the last 2 or 3 days. As a matter of fact, I would have listened to 2 or 3 interviews with Ray Braffett, where I understand he's given knighthood shepherd King Ray Braffett. Is that true?
Yes.
I thought we'd try and move away from this monarchy thing, right? We're looking for reparation in one place, and we 90 people on the other, and it's the kings and them who took advantage of us, Anyway. Let me move forward.
Yeah, all right. So what were you saying about Archbishop Burke? What's the issue?
There was a level of, they always say that the deceitfulness beat back Obia. the Shouta Baptist public holiday was proclaimed under the Pandey's administration. I think they were given a plot of land to also erect a school, if I'm correct. You may correct me.
Yes, and the school is there, has been there for some time.
And not for one time over this last couple of days, I would have heard anybody recognizing the input of Basde Pandey towards the Baptist Shouta arrangement. You understand?
Well, she's in the paper this morning. I'm not sure what she said last night. I couldn't quite get what she was saying under the news report itself, but she's saying that happened under the UNC. She may not have called his name, but which is why she's saying that nobody could get her to.
Correct. But no. What I am saying to you, what I've been listening over the last couple of days, doesn't seem to suggest that any other regime would have made contributions towards the thing. You understand? I think we were recognizing people, we should recognize them for the good they do.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So, but I am not surprised by that. I will tell you why. I listen to Bharat Jagdev, and we always kill the messenger rather than take the message. We have been talking diversification since Cock shed teeth.
Yes.
You understand? So we are now, and we still at the same place. We still at the same place. So while Bharat Jagdev was creating an awareness for his people, with a perfect example of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
I don't see any.
But don't you think it's one thing to be saying that, to be lamenting and standing on the side of all of us who've been saying that we ought to have been further ahead with diversification, but to see that because of that we are falling apart. You don't think that that is contentious?
No. And I will tell you something. As an apologist, use the term diplomatic language, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
You saw what took place in our parliament with respect to Rodney Charles and the behavior of the Prime Minister.
Yes.
And he made very disparaging remarks with respect to head of state, Mia Motley, and, well, he didn't call Bharat Jagdev, but he said Guyana.
Yes.
If I was there, I would take some offense to that kind of behavior.
Well, he wasn't denigrating the countries, and he said that, which this does not necessarily mean that I agree with it. He was saying you always talking about Guyana and Barbados, like you prefer to be there.
But you could go into one by the more he said it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
All right.
So those things, and the other thing, I think Mr. Rowley has been in office for 7 years now, if I'm not mistaken.
You mean as Prime Minister? Yes. Yes.
And it was amazing to see him on the Shouta Baptist holiday that gone, which I commend him to jump on stage and sing a hymn or two. But I'll tell you something, the fella know how to have PVP days, With all this thing that happened with Arawi, with the Police Service Commission, with the drivers, with the shutting down of Petrotrin, he made some strategic move, and those were one of the moves where, he would appeal to his base when he jumped on stage day.
But he couldn't afford not to do that. I mean, what would have happened if he didn't go to that function?
No, I am not saying that he should not have gone.
Yeah. But when you say appease his base, what do you mean? He had a duty to be?
The jumping and the singing, and you understand what I mean?
He's a politician. He's a politician.
The theater.
Yeah.
Theater, my brother.
That's part of the politics, yeah. All right.
Yeah. So, by this whole thing, but I would second Bharat Jagdev. We're in a mess, and if we don't take stock, we'll continue to go down the road further.
Okay.
You understand?
All right.
If we don't take stock, we can't condemn Bharat Jagdev. If Bharat Jagdev chooses to do the right thing, then we should, at least if we can't do it, we should try to learn from him. Yeah,
but you don't think still, you could say the right thing, you could point us in the direction, but to describe the country as falling apart. I mean, you don't think that?
No. Listen. And if you look at all the IMF reports, all the financial reports, they will tell you that Trinidad and Tobago is in a downward spiral. Would you agree with that?
Yes, but the choice of words.
So what Bharat Jagdev doing is echoing the sentiments of the people.
You could be on a downward spiral without falling apart. That has a different kind of connotation in some people's minds.
And I agree with you, but even if you read our newspaper from people like Derek Chin and all them fellas, when you read, and if you were reading that as a foreigner who does not to the anything at Trinidad and Tobago, what will you get from it, from the type of statements that we are seeing on our media every day?
We have challenges, we have difficulties of one kind or another.
Correct.
But yeah.
You see, so no, I'm not saying the country is falling apart, mind you.
Yeah.
What I am taking offense with is the kit tap with Barra Jagdeo. You understand? I don't think we did something so bad that we had to take it to this level.
Yeah, I hear you.
You understand?
Okay.
All it could do is kind of break the kind of nice diplomacy and the relationship between countries. Because, I mean, when you look at Mia Mottley and all that kind of thing that she did recently with the removal of VAT and all them, those are the direction we're supposed to be going.
I hear you. All right.
My brother.
All right.
Have fun.
Thank you very much. I think there's another call. Let's see what happens. So it's a question of interpretation. But good morning. There's another call. Good morning.
Please.
We lost that. All right, well, we're going to leave it there because we're almost out of time for this morning. But that's our broadcast for this morning. We want to thank you for watching. We want to thank our guests. And you want to thank our guests who didn't show. And I'll find out what transpired behind that. And we thank the man from Faizabad for calling. Of course, news at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Sean Small. But before we go, let me just show you what's on the front pages of the paper. Of course, Paolo Cunahan's column in there is saying that we are just avoiding the truth and that he's in support of what Mr. Jagdeo has said. And this is the back page of the paper. One of this story on the front page here is the decision by the government to allow the Caribbean Airlines to have more flights to Tobago on this particular weekend that is coming up. But the question is that people are saying that there needs to be more flights, generally speaking, on the air bridge. And the airline has been saying, well, it doesn't make sufficient economic business sense to do that. But we'll see what happens. They've decided to go and appeal to the Prime Minister for it. This is the front page of the Newsday Tobago. And this is the back page. So that's where we leave you for this Thursday morning. Thanks for watching. We see you tomorrow.